Every day, millions of pregnant women eat something that could quietly put their baby at risk, and most of them have no idea, because the food looks completely normal. Some of these have been linked to infections that can cross the placenta. Others affect how a baby's brain develops, weeks before anyone notices a problem. One of them is eaten by almost everyone on this list, without a second thought. Today we're going through 12 foods and drinks worth a closer look during pregnancy, what actually makes each one risky, and exactly what to eat instead. So you're not just told, don't. You're given a better choice. Stay until the end. The final food on this list fools even some doctors' own patients, and it's probably not the one you're expecting. Quick note before we start. This isn't about fear. It's about information. Most of these risks are about probability, not certainty. One slip-up rarely means disaster. But knowing why something carries risk means you stop guessing and start choosing. One number to keep in mind as we go. The CDC estimates about 1 in 6 Americans gets a foodborne illness every single year. For most people, that's a rough 48 hours. For a developing baby, the stakes can look very different. Let's get into it. 1. Raw seafood. Imagine it's date night. You order sushi like you always have, and it tastes exactly the same as it did a year ago. Nothing about it warns you that anything's different now. But bacteria like Vibrio, and a much sneakier one called Listeria, can live in raw or undercooked seafood, and your immune system, intentionally dialed down during pregnancy so it doesn't reject the baby, is slower to catch them. Listeria, in particular, can cross the placenta and has been linked to miscarriage, premature labor, and serious newborn infection. Here's the part that surprises people. Freezing doesn't fix this. Freezing kills some parasites, but it does almost nothing to Listeria or Vibrio, so it was frozen first isn't the safety net most people think it is. So sushi itself isn't the enemy. The temperature is. Cooked rolls, tempura, eel, California rolls give you the ritual without the risk. But bacteria aren't the only invisible danger hiding in seafood. The next one has nothing to do with bacteria at all, and no amount of cooking removes it. 2. High-Mercury Fish. Quick question, which seems safer, sushi or a nice piece of grilled swordfish? Most people guess swordfish. It's cooked, it's clean, it feels like the responsible choice. It's actually one of the fish doctors most often ask pregnant women to skip. Swordfish, king mackerel, shark, and tilefish sit at the top of the ocean food chain, which means they accumulate mercury from every smaller fish they've eaten over their lifetime. Mercury is a neurotoxin, and it crosses the placenta easily, concentrating in the parts of a baby's brain and nervous system that are still under construction. The unsettling part is that the mother usually feels nothing at all. There's no symptom, no warning sign. The exposure is silent. The fix isn't avoiding fish. Fish is genuinely good for a developing baby's brain. It's choosing the right ones. Salmon, shrimp, light canned tuna, tilapia, cod, generally 2 to 3 servings a week. And if you thought dairy was a safer category altogether, the next one might change your mind. 3. Unpasteurized dairy. Here's a mistake even careful eaters make, scanning a cheese board for anything obviously weird when the actual danger has nothing to do with how a cheese looks, smells, or tastes. Brie, camembert, queso fresco, soft goat cheese. These aren't risky because they're soft. They're risky if they're made from unpasteurized milk, because that moist, aged environment is exactly where Listeria thrives. And here's a number worth remembering. Pregnant women are estimated to be roughly 10 times more likely than the general population to develop a severe Listeria infection. It's one of the only bacteria that can cross the placenta directly while the mother feels only mild flu-like symptoms, or nothing. So the actual rule isn't soft cheese bad, hard cheese good. It's pasteurized good, unpasteurized risky, and most cheese sold in US grocery stores is pasteurized by default. Check the label, not the texture. Now picture the most harmless lunch you can think of. The next food is exactly that. 4. Deli meats and cold cuts. Imagine making the same turkey sandwich you've made 100 times. It looks fine, it smells fine, it tastes fine. And it could still be carrying Listeria, because unlike most bacteria, Listeria can actually keep growing slowly even inside your refrigerator. That's the part that catches people off guard. Refrigeration, which stops almost every other foodborne bacteria in its tracks, barely slows this one down. The truth is, deli meat isn't off limits. It's about temperature, the same theme from sushi. Heat it until it's steaming, around 165 degrees Fahrenheit, and the bacteria is gone. Cold straight from the package is the risk. Microwaved for a few seconds, or added to a hot dish, it's fine. This next one gets recommended by doctors, and still has a catch almost nobody mentions. 5. Liver and vitamin A overload. Here's a twist. Liver is often recommended in pregnancy because it's loaded with iron, and iron needs go up significantly once you're expecting. So how does something that healthy end up on a list like this? Liver is also extremely concentrated in a form of vitamin A called retinol. In small amounts, that's essential. In large, regular amounts, think a weekly habit, not a single serving, preformed vitamin A has been linked to birth defects affecting a baby's developing face, skull, and heart. This is different from the vitamin A in sweet potatoes or carrots, called beta-carotene, which your body only converts as much of as it actually needs. So liver isn't banned, it's rationed. An occasional small serving is generally fine. Making it a weekly staple is where it gets risky. For everyday iron, lean on red meat, beans, spinach, and fortified cereals. Here's one most people assume is automatically healthy because it's a vegetable. 6. Raw sprouts. Quick stat. Sprouts have one of the highest food contamination rates of any produce category tracked by health agencies. Here's why. Bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli can get inside the seed before it ever sprouts. The same warm, damp conditions that make a seed sprout are perfect for bacteria to multiply right along with it, which means rinsing the sprouts afterward doesn't reliably remove what's already inside. Cooked sprouts, tossed into a stir-fry for instance, are completely fine because heat does what washing can't. Now here's the drink a lot of women switch to thinking it's the safe alternative to coffee. We'll get to it in a few minutes, and it might surprise you. 7. Energy drinks. This one's quick, because the issue is simple. It's not really about caffeine, it's about everything else in the can. Most energy drinks combine caffeine with taurine, guarana, and ginseng, a stimulant blend that's essentially never been tested in pregnant women, because trials like that aren't run on pregnant participants. So it's not that energy drinks are confirmed dangerous, it's that nobody actually knows, and the caffeine alone often runs higher than a regular cup of coffee. Sugar-free doesn't change this. The stimulant blend is usually identical either way. A small coffee within daily limits, or black or green tea, is simply the better studied choice. Speaking of tea, remember that safer swap I mentioned a minute ago? Here it is. 8. Herbal teas that aren't pregnancy safe. Herbal sounds like natural, and natural sounds like harmless. But herbal teas are essentially unregulated plant extracts, and some of them affect the uterus or hormones in ways that matter a lot right now. Certain herbs traditionally used to bring on menstruation or labor, concentrated licorice root, pennyroyal, can, in strong enough doses, affect the uterus or fetal development. Even teas marketed as calming sometimes contain ingredients with zero pregnancy safety research behind them. But don't swing too far the other way. This isn't avoid all tea. Ginger tea is well studied and commonly recommended for nausea. Rooibos in moderate amounts is generally fine. Look for tea specifically labeled for pregnancy, rather than assuming herbal automatically means safe. The next danger isn't even food, technically. It's something living on food you probably eat every day. 9. Unwashed produce. Picture this. You're at a farmer's market, you grab an apple, give it a quick wipe on your shirt, and take a bite. Completely normal. Also exactly how a parasite called Toxoplasma gondii, which lives in soil, ends up somewhere it shouldn't. For most people, a toxoplasmosis infection passes by completely unnoticed. But if a pregnant woman is infected for the first time during pregnancy, the parasite can cross the placenta, and depending on timing, it's been linked to effects on a baby's brain and eyes. This isn't a reason to avoid fruits and vegetables. They're essential. It's a reason to actually wash them. Running water, a scrub for anything firm like potatoes or melon, peeling when it's practical. Bagged, pre-washed salad is lower risk, but one more rinse at home costs you 10 seconds. This next one is sitting in almost every kitchen, hiding inside the foods people trust the most. 10. Raw or undercooked eggs. Homemade Caesar dressing. Cookie dough straight off the spoon. A soft-boiled egg with a runny yolk. All three share one ingredient that can carry salmonella. Raw or undercooked egg. Salmonella causes severe vomiting, diarrhea, and fever. It doesn't usually cross the placenta the way listeria does, but the dehydration and high fever it can trigger in the mother are themselves a real risk to the pregnancy, especially if it's severe. Here's the detail people miss. A quick boil doesn't fully solve it. It's not just the white that needs to be firm, the yolk does too. For raw egg recipes like dressing or homemade mayo, pasteurized eggs solve the problem entirely because they're treated to kill the bacteria without cooking the egg. Now, here's a number that might catch you off guard. 11. Hidden caffeine sources. Most pregnant women already know to cut back on coffee. What catches people off guard is everywhere else caffeine hides. Chocolate, certain sodas, some over-the-counter pain relievers, even decaf coffee, which isn't actually zero. This isn't about caffeine being uniquely dangerous in tiny amounts. It's about the daily total. Major health organizations generally recommend staying under roughly 200 milligrams a day, about 1 12-ounce coffee. The issue is when coffee, a chocolate bar, a soda, and a headache tablet all quietly stack up without anyone adding them together. One occasional high day generally isn't something to panic over. It's the consistent daily pattern that matters most. The fix isn't quitting caffeine. It's tracking the total, not just the one coffee you remember having. And now, the last one. The one that splits opinions more than anything else on this list. 12. Alcohol. You've probably heard both sides of this. Some people say an occasional glass of wine is fine. Others say zero, full stop, no exceptions. So let's settle it directly. The honest answer, and the one that surprises people most, no major health organization, not the CDC, not ACOG, has ever identified a safe amount of alcohol during pregnancy. Not a safe amount, not a safe trimester, not a safe type of drink. Here's why it's different from almost everything else on this list. Alcohol crosses the placenta freely, and a developing baby's liver isn't mature enough to process it the way an adult's can. That's what leads to fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, effects on growth, facial development, and brain function that can last a lifetime. And the risk exists at any point in pregnancy, not just early on. And here's the myth that trips up the most people. I had a few drinks before I even knew I was pregnant, so the damage is already done. Might as well relax now. That's not how it works. Every exposure is independent. Stopping the moment you find out still meaningfully reduces total risk. Nothing is already ruined. If you miss the ritual of a glass of wine with dinner, alcohol-free wine and spirits have genuinely improved. Same experience. None of the risk. Pregnancy doesn't require perfection. It requires knowing which risks actually matter. And now you do. If you've already eaten one of these foods before knowing the risk, take a breath. A single exposure usually isn't a crisis, but it's always worth mentioning to your prenatal provider, who knows your specific situation far better than any video can. 12 foods, 12 small decisions. None of them require giving anything up forever, just choosing differently, more often, for the next several months. If avoiding even one of these protects your baby's development, every careful bite was worth it. If this helped, let me know in the comments which one surprised you most. And subscribe, there's more like this coming.